It's time to talk the world's game from an American perspective. Presented by Three Lions Pub, you're listening to Two Up Front, where we focus on all things American soccer, from the NWSL, MLS, U.S. national teams, and all the way to the youth levels. Now in the studio, your hosts, Baxter Colburn and Simon Provan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next edition of Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. We are broadcasting from the Attention Era Media Studios in a rainy, icy Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm Baxter Colburn.
Yeah, and this is Simon Provan.
I almost died on the way to the studio, Simon. I was trying to walk through the parking lot, and I've never been so terrified in my life. I was basically ice skating. I pulled a triple axel on the way through. It was beautiful. The judges loved it, but it was very scary to walk on like frozen ice, basically. You obviously made it to the studio in one piece.
I had the same deal, though, too. Actually, I had a voiceover out at Kohl's corporate headquarters this morning, and you know, so good company like Kohl's is going to make sure they salt everything. But then I got down here in the public park, not the public, still the private parking lot, but they somehow did not get the memo that when it rains around 32, 33 degrees, it quickly turns into ice.
It does. It was terrifying. Even walking out of my apartment to my car, that was only like a 10-foot walk, but I basically hit and slid to my car.
Everybody's walking like an old man and old lady today.
Exactly, right? You can't make fun of anybody today.
Doing the shuffle.
Dancing all the way. Everyone's just dancing today. Everybody loves it. Well, we're dancing as well, too, because we've got a great show for you today. Two huge guests joining us. You have probably heard of both of these gals. They are big players in the NWSL. One of them is Caroline Stanley. She's the goalkeeper for Sky Blue FC. She'll join us in our third segment, but coming up next in our second segment will be U.S. Women's National Team and Portland Thorns midfielder Allie Long as well. So I know Simon is excited to have another Thorns player on the show.
Of course, anytime you get a Portland player on the show, it's just a little bit of extra gusto for me, but I'm always excited about whatever guest that we have on our show.
You're absolutely right. We do want to remind you that our show is broadcast live Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time. We will be making an announcement soon about a new schedule as Simon goes back to school as a professor. We have to change our schedule a little bit. We'll still be twice a week, but we'll get all that information to you officially in the next week once we get things a little bit more figured out. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll actually talk about another organization that's making a format change as well, but much more drastic than what we're doing. Anyways, you can also find us on Facebook, 2 Up Front in the search bar. Use that number 2. You can find us on Twitter. Same thing. Use the number 2 at 2 Up Front Soccer. He is at Baxter Colburn. I am at Simon Provan.
Yes, indeed. Time now to get the show on the road. We'll start around with our kick around, which is brought to you by Too Much Metal for one hand. Too Much Metal is a showroom that features unique T-shirts and apparel, and like the 414 stuff you see all around the area in Milwaukee, Cooler by the Lake hoodies. Too Much Metal is an independent source for smart people seeking smart T-shirts. More information can be found on their Facebook page or at toomuchmetal.com as well. All right, Simon, you have something that you are very interested to talk about because when you think about soccer, you think about the local game, the domestic game, you think about the international level. Nothing is bigger, of course, than the World Cup, correct?
Absolutely.
So the World Cup is supposedly making some changes in the next couple of years.
Oh, it's not supposedly. Unanimously voted on to increase the field to 48 teams, starting with the 2026. The worst part is, Baxter, here's the worst part. 16 groups of 3 teams. So that means teams will get 2 games guaranteed. That's it.
That's just no. Which I feel like is a little bit more demand, though, because then you have to be good.
Well, that's just it. In fact, it's about one thing, Baxter. Let me a little sound effect for you. Oh, I'm not done yet. I'm gonna let it play.
Oh, okay. Keep going.
Yeah, FIFA has made no qualms about this, Baxter.
That's amazing.
It is about the money. They're
100%.
And they've come out and said they're talking about generating an extra $1 billion because of this.
Well, yeah, you're going from 32 to 48
teams.
I can see the perspective of, now the teams need to be even better, but how many of those group games are going to just be washes because you're going to have like Thailand in there against, Brazil?
Well, and even then, maybe you do get some other countries that do deserve to be there or still maybe that second level of elite teams.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is you look at the qualifying process. That for me is really what gets diluted now. You've got 16 extra teams, depending on how the figure out who's going to take those spots. South America, this is my big point, only has 10 teams in its confederation.
Yeah.
You could literally see them get 5 seeds, and they don't have to do any type of qualifying process.
Yeah.
Or, hey, maybe they get 2 more seeds, so now they're at 7. That means 70% of South American teams are going to make the World Cup.
It's almost you're diluting the product, basically. And so is it going to be the group winner advances, not the second and first and second?
I think that is the idea. That
you're going to have 16
So they're not going to
teams.
have a second round, right? They go to a round of 16.
Just go to a round of 16 immediately, which makes sense, I guess.
No, that would be the second round.
Round of 16,
sorry.
and then you go to quarters and blah, blah, blah after that.
And Infantino, the president of FIFA right now, has said the reason they want to do 16 groups of 3 teams is because they want to keep the tournament still within a month, and that would really be the only way to do it. Yet, on the other side of that, he also says, but we haven't settled on anything yet. But look, CONCACAF Champions League, they have 3 teams in their groups, 8 groups of 3 teams.
Yep.
It's not as you don't have as much drama with a 3-team group
really
as you do
don't.
with a 4-team group.
Exactly.
And other people have said, why don't you do something like 8 groups of 6 teams? Then you have the top 2 teams make the round of 16. I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah. Well, one of the teams that's obviously going to be trying to get in there is the U.S. men's national team.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be curious to see what they do, especially now with Bruce Arena calling in his first batch of players. 32 players into the January camp, 5 goalkeepers, 10 defenders, 12 midfielders, and a partridge in a pear tree with 5 forwards. Some surprises, some rewards for some long-lost players, and then, of course, you've got Jermaine Jones on this roster, who has just no business be on here. But that's a whole other topic.
You still have Chris Wondolowski on the team as well.
Chris Wondolowski doesn't need to be on here. Jermaine Jones doesn't need to be on here. But I'm excited to see guys like Dax McCarty, Darlington Nagbe, Chris Pontius, I think is going to be interesting. He had a great year for DC United, or Philadelphia, pardon me. He was at DC. He swapped over. I think it's going to be good to see him. Stephen Fry is on this list as well, too, from the Seattle Sounders. I don't necessarily think he's the future, but I think he's being rewarded for his great MLS season.
Well, and why not give him a look? I mean, that's spectacular.
You never know.
You don't call up a player for one single save, but that spectacular save that he had in the MLS Cup does show his talent level. So, and most of these players I'm okay with, but when you do see players like Chris Wondolowski, Jermaine Jones, you kind of shake your head and go, wait, what? I thought we were done with this stuff.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Maybe I missed something, but Graham Zusi's listed as a defender. Did he make a transition that I must have missed?
I don't have the article here, Baxter. Arena did come out and talk about that. I think it may have been on a Facebook Live. I wish I could have remembered what he said. I don't have that here, but that is not a mistake.
Maybe he's the left back of the future, Graham Zusi. Hopefully. I don't know. I'm really excited to see Sebastian Legit and Kikuta Mane as well from
Absolutely.
Vancouver. If you get Mane and Nagbe running up the wings along with some of the other speedy guys on this team, could really be a dynamic attack with Zardes mixed in there. We know what Morris can do. Juan Aguinaldo's got a nice call-up as well, too, from his time with the Revolution. There's a lot of players on this team that I think folks have been hoping and praying we're going to finally get a chance, and now this is going to be the chance to really showcase if they really deserve to be. Maybe Jurgen Klinsmann wasn't as crazy as some people thought, or maybe he was.
You do look at the midfield, seeing Kellen Acosta in there, Dax McCarty in there, Sasha Klestin in there, along with the names that you were talking about. That's exciting to see those players in there. I'm a little surprised. I'm sorry, no, Benny Feilhaber as well. I was going to say, I'm surprised when I see him, but Feilhaber's in there as well.
You've been calling for that for years, basically. As long as the show's been around, you basically have been calling.
True, very true.
Almost 2 years, Simon has been pushing hard for Benny Feilhaber.
And I'm not alone in that. There's been a lot of U.S. fans saying, hey, what's the deal here?
Agreed. I completely agree. Flipping over quickly to the women, because we have to get to our first break here in just a moment. Jill Ellis calling in 4 goalkeepers, 7 defenders, 11 midfielders, and 7 forwards. She did also just add Sarah Killian as well to the roster, but some young college players and then some seasoned veterans also. We're going to talk to one of them here shortly, Allie Long. We'll get to that in a moment, though. But Taylor Smith from Western New York Flash, a new name on there. The new looks, though, of Crystal Dunn with Chelsea, Alex Morgan with Leon, will that make a difference? But Amy Rodriguez returning after giving birth and rehab. No Sydney Leroux. I was maybe a tad surprised by that, but I'm curious to see what Amy Rodriguez still has left in the tank.
Well, I think the big thing you take away from this roster, at least for me, is those players that Jill Ellis has called up before from the NWSL that hadn't gotten an opportunity. Many of them have been called back. So it says a lot about those players. You had mentioned Crystal Dunn, Jessica McDonald on there as well. So it shows that these NWSL players had shown well in their last camp, and hopefully they'll do the same in this upcoming camp.
And you and I were a little critical of Jess McDonald as well, too, with her time for the national team. And we know she's obviously a good friend of the show, and she's gone through a lot of adversity. But we were a little concerned, though, based off of what we saw from her. Her touches weren't as sharp as we thought they were going to be. She didn't even get on the field for a ton of time. But I think Jill Ellis is saying, look, Jess McDonald is a workhorse. She's going to really bring some sort of a new spirit to this team, and I want to see what she can do a second time.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course that was, earlier in the season. Later in the season, we did see her get more playing time and starting to score a bunch of goals.
Yep, you're absolutely right. All right, we're going to run to our first break. When we come back, Allie Long will be here to join us. Stay tuned. It's Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. Welcome back inside the Attention Era Media Studios. It's Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, wrapping up that first segment, talking about the World Cup expanding to 48 teams in 2026. It's funny how, you talk about, the 2018 World Cup, and it seems so far away. So thinking about the 2026 World Cup, that seems years away, but life flies by way too fast, honestly. I mean, my son is 2 months old already. I swear I swear my wife was just pregnant. Where does time go, Simon? Well, you told me one of your daughters is going to high school
next year. Yes.
Wow.
Crazy.
Life flies by way too fast. All right, anyway, we get to jump into our first interview today. Joining us on the shopfutsal.com call-in line is a lady that has done an absolutely incredible job reinvigorating, I think some people might say, her national team career. She's been a staple in the NWSL as long as she's been playing. She is a midfielder for the Portland Thorns. And now she finds herself, of course, with the U.S. Women's National Team for the January camp. It's Allie Long, and she joins us now. Allie, welcome to Two Up Front.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Allie. We are thrilled to have you on the show. First and foremost, congratulations on another call-up to the Women's National Team.
Thank you.
What are you most excited about this upcoming camp? Is there anything specific you're hoping to kind of refine your craft a little bit more on?
Well, we've had kind of a long break, and we haven't played since November, and so it's just really good just to get back with the team, and there's a bunch of new faces, just kind of training together, getting in a routine again, and kind of just getting back into it and being in that environment. And obviously away from camp, I've been working on my game and doing all different types of stuff, but when you're in camp, it's kind of just time to just come as a team and work hard and get after it.
Hey, Allie, this is Simon, the other host on the show. So you're talking about the January camp. Not only are you going to be there, but you got plenty of Thorns teammates as well. Adriana French, Tobin Heath, your good friend, of course, Tobin Heath, Lindsay Horan, and Emily Sonnet. Looking at this as a club picture as well, how important is it to be training with fellow teammates in the off-season like this, but at such a high level?
I think that when we get back together with the Thorns, it just kind of helps us help lead our team. And I think a lot of the reason why we were really successful last year was not only Mark, obviously, in our team and everything, but I think that away from soccer, we I mean, like when we were away from the Thorns, like our core starting group was still trained together, was even like elevated with the environment on the national team. And I think that just has helped us remain sharp and together and cohesive kind of in a sense. And when we get back to the Thorns, you know, we kind of implement everything together and just stay together and just get training in and continue to build as a team.
And I think that definitely shows how, I mean, you know, with Portland doing as well as they did last season, and you yourself, I mean, you played in 15 total regular season games. You had 6 goals and 2 assists. Simon, I think, was a little bit more open, and because he follows Portland a little bit closer than I do, but he was a little bit more open about how you were playing last season as a whole and was very, you know, complimentary of it. I was a little bit more distant, not because I don't think you're a good player, but just because I was following different teams. You know, I'm a Houston Dash fan at heart. But
that's fine.
So please forgive me for my allegiance.
I have to forgive him daily for that.
He does. It's a hard thing to do some days. But I was telling Simon a couple of months ago, saying that when you were, you know, coming out of, I felt at least you were kind of having this resurgence, especially at the club level. Were you feeling the same, or do you feel like your career has been on this upward track, and last season was just a high note for you, or were you extra critical and say, last season could have been better actually?
So every season I set a goal that I want to come back and like be better than the next season, and I want to work on things that I wasn't as good or as my weaknesses or different things in the off season, and kind of just and continue to grow my strengths and just come back into the next season and do really well. And I think, to be honest, the season before this one was probably my best season because, I mean, I scored more goals, and I just was involved in like a lot. This as like a personal level player, but as like an all around like team and like my growth as a player, I think this year has been definitely like by far my best like growth, personal, all around level, like on a team and just I've been playing, like, I guess the year before that I was playing attacking mid, or 2 years before I was playing, like, attacking mid, and then for me, my strength is, like, a holding mid, like a box-to-box mid, and just kind of defending and attacking. I'm not, like, a 10 at all. So last year I was playing true 6, and then when Amadine came, we kind of balanced each other. When she would go up, I was staying, and when I would go up, she would, when she would say I would go up, and it kind of, we balanced each other really well. And so I think, like, that, the people around me have also like enabled me to be successful and do what I do best. And I think previously, obviously I'm definitely growing as a player, but I don't think that I was surrounded by the players that I have been. And I've been like so grateful, and they're just awesome teammates and awesome players all around.
And I think that's a true testament too to, you know, how you've been able to grow throughout the season. So thank you for your honesty with that too. Sometimes you get certain players, you know, you ask them about their career development as a whole, and some players will say, well, yeah, this season was my best, but it's good that you were consistently trying to get better. And I think that's a testament to why we have seen you in the national team a lot more recently as well.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I'm curious about too is you spent some time in France back in 2011 and 12 playing for PSG. You've gone on loan to Chelsea as well. We've seen some of the more notable women's national team players in Crystal Dunn and Alex Morgan make full transfers over to Europe. Do you think that's going to continue to be a trend with some of the national team players, or just other players from NWSL, because of some of the financial issue that have been going on with the league?
I think that I don't want to say it's solely financial. I think that also the problem with our league and the NWSL is amazing, and I'm so grateful of it because there's nothing like playing the best like competitive soccer in the USA. So that being said, it is the best league in the world competitive wise. I think the problem is that when our season ends in October, it's like, okay, you have a break in November, or for most NWSL players, you have a break, and then national team players, you get back into camp. But like, if you want to develop, for me, your development is solely in your hands. So for me, my husband plays futsal, and I've been able to play in these like intense leagues and like getting in games, whether it's like indoor or like 8v8. I'm playing in games, and I'm playing against people, and it's like so intense and really high level. Like that pushes me. whereas some players don't have that. I don't think anyone else really has that. Maybe they play pickup or this and that, but it's not consistent. And I think that, like Alex, Crystal, other players, everyone wants to develop and be the best player that they can be. And so
of course,
I think for that, they want games, they want training. And I think that is like, it's almost not even thinking about the money side of it. It's almost like, well, I need to, and if there's any time to do it, it's like now or next year, because then the World Cup starts. And so I wouldn't put a limit on Alex and Crystal, but I also know that everyone loves, even Alex and Crystal, they love having a league in the U.S. I think for Alex's club, Orlando, they're new. There's a lot of young players. Training environment isn't necessarily pushing her. So I think her move is more for her development as a player and growth. And I think that it's smart, and this is the time to do it. So I don't know how many more players will do it, but I'm not going to say that they're just the only two. There could be more, but it just really depends on their situation. And I think it shows that they're like really determined to be like the best that they can be.
We're talking with Allie Long here on 2 Up Front on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Allie, coming back to this side of the pond, talking about development, talking about the offseason. In 2 days is the NWSL college draft, something, of course, unique to American soccer. Of course, your coach, Mark Parsons, is going to be making all the decisions. Listen, you guys came very close to lifting the cup last year. Of course, you were beating the semifinals, broke my heart as well in the semifinals.
Bummer about that.
Of course. But you were Supporter Shield winners, so if you were in charge of this draft, what are the things you would be looking for the Portland Thorns with the 4 picks that you have?
With our 14th pick as our first pick, which is really crazy. But honestly, I feel that like something that Mark has done is kind of like a team takes a while to grow, and I think a lot of teams in the NWSL, like they'll all these great players will be put on the field, and they're like either successful or they're not up to where everyone expects them to be. And it's like, okay, but like it takes time to like grow and to learn players and to especially when you're only playing like 24 games in a season, and then you go away for 6 months and everyone goes to different environments. So I think that like he's remained the same team, and kind of like there's not many changes from our team, and I think that's done on purpose. I think that the only thing, maybe we can add more depth coming off the bench. I think like our starting 11 is great, and I think that I know Kling has a little back thing, so maybe a defender, but I think our team is great, and I don't know, it's going to be tough because any college player coming into the Thorns is you have to be ready to perform. So
no kidding, yeah.
It would be up to them. To me, I feel like if you're good enough and you can get drafted, now it's what you do with the opportunity. And I think that Mark is a football guy. He's intelligent and he loves the game, and he'll pick someone that everyone's going to get along with, because he does his research. He makes sure that they're good people off the field too, and he's going to get someone that's going to be able to fit right in and help us. And I'm actually curious to see what he's going to do with it. Positions.
Yeah, that's one
thing.
And
I've spoken to him, but I'm kind of waiting for a surprise too.
That's definitely one thing that we know about Mark. There was an article that came out that basically said the day after Portland lost in the semifinals, he was already watching tape on college players, which I completely believe that.
Yeah, he loves the game. He loves watching soccer. I mean, I have all my trust in him, and I know whoever he picks is going to be great. Obviously, they're not the top pick, but I think that there's so much talent in the youth that a 14th pick is probably just as good as first-round top pick.
Absolutely. Well, Allie, we got to let you run. As much fun as we're having, thank you so much for coming on 2 Up Front today.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Allie. We really appreciate it, and hope we can do this again with you sometime soon.
Of course, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, Allie. Anytime. We'll talk to you soon. There goes Allie Long on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. As you probably heard, our next guest is ready and eager to talk to us. So Caroline Stanley of Sky Blue FC will be joining us on the other side of the break. Stay with us. It's 2 Up Front, presented by 3 Lions Pub. Welcome back to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub, here from the Attention Era Media Studios. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Fantastic interview in our last segment with U.S. Women's National Team midfielder and Portland Thorns midfielder. Let's not forget about Portland and their Allie Long. I try to forget about it sometimes, but when she wears the red, white, and blue, I don't care who you play for. But once you put the club jersey on, that's where things might get a little hairy.
You're supposed to be unbiased when you're actually on the air, though.
I know. I could tell she was fine with it. She's like, no, she consoled me on being a Dash fan. I appreciate that, Allie. Thank you. It was a rebuilding year for the Dash.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll go with that. Anyway, time to move on to our second guest joining us on the shopfutsal.com call-in line, a team that you and I were... What's the right word for it? Surprised by, befuddled by, confused by?
I think befuddled.
Befuddled by, because we didn't ever really know anytime Sky Blue FC went on the field what we were going to get. That was just the honest truth. We've had other players on the show in the past with Taylor Lytle and others that have been on, and we're like, so explain to us what's going on. And even the players sometimes are like, you know what? It's just been kind of a crazy year, and I'm hoping.
Well, even Christy Holly had came out and said the same thing. It was pretty much up and down and trying to figure things out.
Exactly. Well, we get to have another player from Sky Blue on the show now. Hopefully she can maybe put it together a little bit more. She had probably some people might say the best seat in the house for at least 11 games this season by playing goalkeeper. It's Caroline Stanley, and she joins us now on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Caroline. We are thrilled to have you on the show. 11 games for you in goal this season for Sky Blue FC. I don't know if you heard our banter there before we brought you on, but can you shed a little bit more light on, now that you've had a full season to really kind of digest? It was kind of all over the place. You'd beat teams you weren't supposed to beat. You'd lose the teams some people would say you're not supposed to lose to. And then when the dust settled, you almost made the playoffs. Can you give us a little bit more of a thought about what 2016 was for you in Sky Blue?
Absolutely. I mean, I can try my best, but sometimes we were just as confused, I think, that as everyone else was. We had a great squad this year, but I think what the main thing was, there were so many new faces, myself included. And there's no secret that every team has just tons of depth with talent. And I think that for us, it was about trying to come together and kind of get that consistency. And like you said, sometimes there are games where we'd come out with a win, and we weren't shocked because we put things together that we knew we needed to, and other times it just didn't go our way. But what I will say is I feel really good about where we are, where we finished the year, and how we're going to start up this next season.
And you, like you said, this is your first season with Sky Blue. You were at Seattle in 2015. You obviously had to sit behind Hope Solo and learn from one, some people might say arguably one of the best goalkeepers from the women's game, or just in general, to ever play. What did you take from watching Hope? Anyway, I'm just going to walk away from that. What did you learn from Hope Solo while you were there in Seattle? While I still have a little bit of dignity left in my mouth here. Holy cow.
It's okay. My grandma calls her So Polo. So
perfect. I'm not the only one.
Pass on
Good.
That
as long as it wasn't Han Solo that you were learning for, I think you got everything.
Hey, I think my brother's called her that a few times too. Star Wars nerd. But no, you know what? I think an easier question would be almost what I didn't learn from her. I think that I had a pretty wild college career. I had 3 different coaching staffs and ended my college career with the staff that's now at USC, the national championship staff. If anyone didn't hear. I didn't get that consistent training. And I was a starter my entire time through college, so I never even had a chance to learn from an older, experienced goalkeeper. And what better goalkeeper to go learn from than the most experienced goalkeeper I mean, it was truly kind of a Cinderella season. I was just hoping to make the team and hoping to get through that 1 month preseason trial and kind of get my bearings straight before she came in after a month from national team duties. And I think that she just really took the time to break things down with me and to explain things to me and to compliment me on the things that I was doing well. And that entire goalkeeper core they had there that year was just incredible. The coach, Ben Dravagon, I can't say enough about him, or Haley Kottmeyer, really. I mean, it was just so solid. And that's a tough group to break into. They're a tight-knit group. And once you do break in and feel comfortable, it's just such a learning environment. And it's hope learning, too. And I think that's what was so great, was seeing the humility from her, that she's still so hungry to learn. And it was very motivating for me as a young rookie to see the process of what it takes to be the world's greatest goalkeeper.
Well, speaking of international play, you're no stranger to the international scene. You've spent a lot of time with the youth national teams, but talk about a goalkeeping core now with the with the senior women's national team. Any talk whatsoever about or aspirations on your side of someday getting called up to the senior level?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Missouri, and I didn't really know what the national team was. I just knew who Abby Wambach was. And then as I got a little bit older, I quickly realized who Hope Solo was. And I fell in love with the national team. And there wasn't a lot of coverage, but I think that as a kid who goes to the youth national team, you kind of get a taste of what it's like. And it definitely motivates you, or I think it kind of makes some players shrink down and they can't handle it. But I definitely wouldn't still be playing if my aspirations weren't to get a call-up. I think that's how a lot of girls in the league are. And if you're not, that's okay, too, because you've reached the great milestone of being a professional goalkeeper, a professional athlete. But for me, ever since I was probably 8 years old, it's always been my dream to someday get that call-up and that opportunity to represent your country at the senior level. I don't think there's anything like that. And that youth program and that youth system just gives you a small taste of the pride and the responsibility and how much you have to just grind day in and day out to be able to wear that jersey. So, I mean, there's no talks that I've heard of me ever getting a call up, but it doesn't make me, for a second, stop working hard and dreaming for that.
And to be fair, you're also very young in your career as well, too. I mean, you're only in your second professional season. You're, the young age of 23. Some might say you have your whole life ahead of you still to get the national team call-up. I mean, we're seeing ladies like Jess McDonald getting called up for the first time. And
28, 29.
Yeah, so a lot can happen within a season. It's, one save, one, incredible moment that can all of a sudden trigger, the national team staff to be like, we need to get this girl Stanley on the national team. She seems to be on the right track. Caroline, I want to step aside from soccer for a moment and talk about one of the things you do off the field. You, correct me if I'm wrong, you're an ambassador for the Young and Brave Foundation, which is a which is a nonprofit organization that supports children with cancer. I would love to hear a little bit more about your role with that and why you got involved.
Yes, sir. So I got hooked up with one of the co-founders of the Young and Brave my senior year of college, and I had heard a little bit about them, but I mean, it's just something that's really near and dear to my heart. We had a cousin who had a baby who unfortunately had a brain tumor, and she lived to be 1.5 years old. And just seeing how one of the things the Young and Brave say is it's not just one child who gets cancer. It's not just one mom that gets cancer. It's the family that gets cancer. And there's so many studies that are done about positive attitude and just feeling loved through the entire process that truly helps heal the human spirit and in turn make them stronger to try to get through that chemo. And obviously at the end of the day, it's a very ugly disease, but something that the Young and Brave really focuses on is just giving that unconditional love through the entire process of it. And Matt and Nathaniel, they're incredible, and they've dedicated their lives to this. And, they're guys who've, like Matt will tell you, he's made $1 million, he's lost $1 million, and he finally said he wanted something more from life, and he said there's nothing as fulfilling as helping these families through such hardship. And it's been incredible to get to meet some of these warriors, these kids who are fighting. And sometimes you feel like you've had a bad day at work, or you're tired and you haven't got enough sleep, and then you just think about these kiddos who, they're never going to be able to run around with their friends or go to prom. And it's not something meant to make people feel guilty, but it's just the truth. And hopefully it will make people just take a step back and breathe and feel a little bit more grateful for the things they have in life. I know it's definitely given me perspective through things that at the end of the day, they matter, but at the end of your life, you're not going to be so upset about a presidential 4-year term. You're not going to be so upset about the party you didn't get to go to, or, just simple things that at the end of your life, they don't matter. And my mom always says, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't waste 5 minutes worrying over that. And so I think that it's just given me perspective personally, and it's just really inspiring to see these kids just fighting and still have a smile on their face and able to do some of the things they love through all of that pain.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about first half, Caroline. I've got a niece that's been battling cancer for about a year now. She's gone through 6 weeks of treatment up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. But things are looking good for her. She's back at school 3 hours a day now. Yesterday was her first day back. She's a big dancer. She actually did 4 straight dances over the weekend.
Wow.
Everything you're saying, it is amazing. First of all, that it is the family that gets cancer. Watching my brother and sister-in-law and her brothers as well. Having to deal with this. It really does put things in perspective. So I personally want to thank you for the work that you are doing. It's very much needed.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
I feel like I don't do much. I feel like at the end of the day, I think sometimes you get a little big and you think, I'm going to go into this hospital and hand out some toys at Christmas, or show these kids, I'm an athlete, and you're like, it's going to make their day. And then I always leave in tears and feel so just grateful for everything. And it's really them who end up impacting you a lot more than you'll ever impact them. So I just think it's so great.
And just kind of to close on that too, it's a moment too. You never know what moment that might end up happening. Whether you might think it's big or small, you never know whose life you might be impacting. And you said it too. The kids are impacting you just as much as you might be impacting them as well, Caroline. So we are so grateful that you took some time out of your busy schedule to join us, Caroline. We hope to do this again with you sometime soon if it works out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it, Caroline. We'll talk soon. There goes Caroline Stanley of Sky Blue FC on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. When we come back, we are going to talk about something that we love so much, MLS, and what this new Division 2, Provisional 2, whatever stuff means. And I'm sure Simon's got a thought about that. Plus, some other great stuff we'll talk about as well, and we'll close out the show. It's 2 Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. Stay with us. Back here inside the Attention Era Media Studios, it's 2 Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
2 absolutely incredible interviews. If we could power rank our interviews, Simon, I feel like those 2 that we just had with Allie Long and Caroline Stanley would have to be top 10, I'd feel like, in 2 Up Front show history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just, great insight from Allie, and her honesty, as you had mentioned on the air, was great to hear. Caroline, not only hearing about her on-the-field career, but her off-the-field passion as well.
Exactly. I think that it speaks that soccer is more than just a game. You're impacting lives in numerous ways, and I think her work off the field is something that needs to be highlighted more.
The one thing I wanted to ask her, but we ran out of time, is what's it like at practice when Christy Holly yells out, "Hey, Caroline!" Do both goalkeepers turn and go, "What?"
Who are you talking to? We'll have to.
We'll have to have her back on just to clear that up.
And ask Christy too. Be like, I'm sure playing sports, and I'm sure you know this too. Everybody's a last name.
Absolutely,
Provan, Colburn,
or some nickname that goes along with it.
You're like, wait, where did you get that? Sometimes people get the most random nicknames with their careers. Did you have any random nicknames?
Nah, my two nicknames were Cy, which of course is short for Simon, and then the other was Provy, which is
Provy.
just But all of us, me and my sister and my older brothers, all of us, that was our nickname, Provy.
Provy.
Yep.
There you go.
How about you? Did you have any odd nicknames?
I was given to me when I was in high school as Baxter. People would make fun of me and call me Baxter.
Sure.
And then I used that on Twitter for a while, and people were like, people would just call me by my username, like @Baxter20. I'm like, why is that what you call me? I'm like, I could have had 100 different nicknames, and you call me by what my Twitter handle is. I'm like, that's
now strange. I've been called other things.
Yeah. I have too. I have too. Most of them in foreign languages, playing in Florida, but still, there was a lot of fun.
That's all the Spanish you speak, isn't it?
Some days it feels like that's all I know. I'm like, what do you know in Spanish? You don't want me to tell you, honestly. All right. Simon, this happened a couple of days ago, and I wanted to get your thoughts about it because we've talked about it on the show before. The USL and NASL, we thought NASL was dead. We thought it was going away. We thought if the Cosmos were going to leave, it was all going to fall apart.
Well, and for me, that's what everybody kept saying, but for me, it wasn't just the Cosmos, it was the number of teams that would be left in the NASL.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be 8 NASL teams. So if you
Cosmos is
one of them. If you haven't heard, U.S. Soccer granted provisional Division II status to USL and NASL. Now, they said that neither team fully met...
Candy for everyone!
Yes.
Yay!
Everybody gets a ribbon. Neither league fully matched what being a true Division II status is in the grand scheme of American soccer, apparently, which I feel like American soccer could make it whatever they want to if they really wanted to. But so they both are going to be provisional, which I wonder if there's going to be a new Super League that comes from USL and ASL next year.
I don't think so. No,
I don't know what this is. What does this mean?
So the provisional, just to clarify for everyone, really the big thing for the NASL is this being their 6th year, they're supposed to be playing with 12 teams. They're only playing with 8, so they needed a waiver for that. They do have 3 teams in 3 different time zones, which is one of the requirements of Division II, with Puerto Rico being in the Atlantic time zone. So that, of course, you have teams on San Francisco on the West Coast, all the other teams on the East Coast. So that fulfills that requirement. The thing for USL is they have a number of teams that don't meet the stadium seating requirement.
Yep, that was the big thing.
Right. And then, of course, there's other things in there that had to be waived as well. Interesting, I was listening to another show this morning in which the USL commissioner was talking about every league in America up to this point needs a waiver of some sort for the tier status that they're at. NWSL has a bunch of them being a Division I status. It wasn't until this year that MLS actually was playing waiver-free, which I didn't realize.
I didn't realize that either.
So interesting to hear that. The big thing for me is what this means. No, they're not going to become one huge league. The USSF basically did that the first time that both these leagues were at Division II status. But what it means is that in 12 months, they're going to revisit all of this.
I hope so.
Have they made progress on what they said they would make progress on? Part of this, I think it really, big part of it is just politics. They knew if NASL was bumped down to Division III, that was the end of NASL. Mm-hmm. And they knew that if they kept the USL at Division III status, but gave all these waivers to the NASL, USL would not be happy anymore.
Also
so
true.
For me, it comes down to making these teams happy, or these leagues happy. Now, the NASL, I give them credit, Baxter. They've been very humble through all of this.
Good, they needed to be.
Bill Peterson, their commissioner, actually just recently stepped down or was fired. We're not quite sure, but he's no longer the commissioner. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the guys firstly saying we are going to compete with MLS. NASL isn't talking about that anymore. They're talking about how do we keep our Division II status now? moving forward. So in the end, as much as I'm making fun of participation awards and all that, I think this could end up being a really good thing for soccer in the U.S.
Do you see I wasn't... so you basically said that you would shut down any sort of a merger, basically, between USL and NASL next year or the following year?
They're two different business models. I just don't think it would happen. There would have to be... the NASL is more of the... Every owner has their own team, whereas the USL, of course, you've got the development squads in MLS. Then you do have your independent teams. Then you kind of have your hybrids of the two. So I don't think a merger would be possible. What you may see, like Tampa Bay, dropping into another league, but I think at some point you got to sort out who's Division 3 and who's Division 2. And maybe it's not these leagues. Maybe it is a different league. But this is going to be the first time in just about a decade that we actually will not have a Division 3 league in the United States.
And the NPSL didn't apply for any division
there's no way it
status.
Could.
No, are they technically Division 4?
I think they're Division 4.
Technically, yeah. And the NPSL is growing, though, too.
Sure.
I mean, you talk about I think it's over 50 teams or something like that they've got.
Well, and when you've got successful teams like Chattanooga FC, Detroit City FC, it is a growing league.
Yeah, or was it AFC Cleveland, I think, is another one. I think they went to the final this year, if I'm not mistaken.
They're a USL team.
Are they really?
Yes.
Why did I think they were... maybe I'm mixing up maybe there's the U23s or something, because Indy 11 has
the positive thing out of this, Baxter, is we can't even keep teams straight anymore because there's so many teams in the United States, which is a great thing. Now, it could be a bad thing, too, though. Obviously, I lived through the period of, hey, here's a new team, goodbye, new team. Hey, here's another new team, goodbye, new team. Hey, here's a new team. Oh, wait, they're not even going to kick off yet. We're getting beyond that point, which is a great thing in American soccer.
What about Miami FC or whoever? David Beckham United, Real Madrid, whatever FC?
You know how I feel about that whole thing.
Let's get it together,
Give up on Miami. Move elsewhere.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, MLS, I think, as a whole, though, like you said, they're in an entirely new spot. They're moving forward. They've got two new great expansion teams joining in Atlanta and Minnesota this year. LAFC joins next season also. The MLS, I think, overall, I think you should say you're pretty happy with MLS, wouldn't you say?
Well, again, I know there's a lot of people who are going to say it's a joke league because they don't have promotion relegation. I get that, but those tend to be the people who didn't live through the late 70s, early 80s, well, all the way through the early 90s when, indoor soccer was the big sport for the game.
Yep.
And again, I have brothers who played professionally indoor.
Yeah.
It was a game that kept the name of soccer alive in the United States. So I've got nothing but good things to say about NPSL, the National Premier Soccer League, which was the indoor league,
the real
for many
NPSL
years.
Back in the day. Now it's the MASL, Major Arena Soccer League.
Yep. But my point is to still be living in a time where we have a healthy first division league that's bringing in decent players and that is developing players.
Yeah,
it's still, Baxter, it is literally a dream come true for this 40-year-old.
It is, and I think that you have every right to be excited about it. I mean, even for someone like myself who has continuously started to follow a little bit more MLS since, basically, probably the mid-2000s is basically when I really started to follow, a little bit more. And I think that MLS has done the right things. I mean, they're on their way. They're not expanding too fast. That was always the big concern, as you mentioned, too. The teams come, the teams go. But
they have the big thing is, sorry to interrupt you, they have a vetting process with their ownership.
Yeah.
This isn't like the old NASL where it was, you want to be in here? Oh, you got that much money? Cool, let's do it.
Yes.
They're very critical. Now, I will say, I personally would like them to slow down with expansion because I want teams to have a roster and actually know that they can have that roster for more than 2 years.
True. That is very true.
These expansion drafts, you just, and then as we saw in this latest round of expansion drafts, there's a lot of behind-the-door deals going on of, okay, we won't pick this guy if you give us this.
Yeah, so we'll honestly have to see, I guess, what comes out of that. Speaking of something else, I think needs to be warranted a little bit is a thank God moment.
Yes,
is what happened with FC Dallas defender Ryan Hollinghead. And you know a little bit more about it than I do, Simon. But from what I've heard, Ryan and his family were helping a car that was stranded down in Dallas, I believe, or off of it. My phone's being a little iffy here with me, but he's recovering after being hit and thrown 30 feet in the air while trying to help a stranded driver in Irving, Texas. And he's a midfielder, by the way, so pardon me for that. But it's scary things like that you're just trying to do the right thing, and cars aren't paying attention on the highway, and
get
taken out.
Here's the guy who He was drafted by FC Dallas in 2013, and he actually said, no thanks, my brother's building a church in another country, and I want to go help him do that.
That's incredible.
And it's also incredible that FC Dallas said, okay, well, let's talk again in a year. And he actually ended up signing with them in December of 2013 and then started playing in 2014. But the scary part about this, Baxter, this is out of Fox 4 in Dallas. Akindele was there to check on Ryan, and apparently Ryan, for the first 30 seconds after being hit, couldn't feel anything in his body. So he thought he was completely paralyzed. He's let's see here. I want to make sure I get this right. So he's fractured his cervical vertebrae, his C2, C3, and C4. You know, for him to be able to walk away with this, doctors basically said you'll be in a neck brace for 6 to 8 weeks, and you should be fine. That's amazing.
That's a God thing right there. I know he might be going through current pain now, but to, number one, not die, and number two, have possibilities to maybe return. It might be a long road for him to return after, especially breaking things, in his spine. But
yeah, in fact, Baxter, he had said that his very first thought after he hit the ground was, "I'm probably dead." And for him to be able to walk away from that and have some vertebrae fracture, but still to be able to have all the feeling, to be there with his wife and kids still, and of course, a great team like Tesho Akindele coming in and checking on the guy. It's overall, if we want to talk about one thing in MLS, that's a great thing to talk about.
You're absolutely right. That brotherhood as well, too. All right, we're going to run to a final break. When we come back, we will wrap things up and see what else is available in the soccer world to chat about for the last couple of minutes. It's 2 Upfront, presented by Three Lions Pub.
Three Lions Pub in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is just the place for me. They've got everything. Great pub food, a wonderful selection of draft beers, and a brilliant atmosphere, especially during Premier League matches. Check out the Three Lions Pub menu at threelionspub.com, where you can also find all their specials and the great events that take place throughout the year. Three Lions Pub, where across the pond is now across the street.
Welcome back inside the Attention Era Media Studios. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
It's 2 Upfront, presented by Three Lions Pub. Wrapping up the show here, a fantastic show. If you missed any of today's show, which had Allie Long of the U.S. Women's National Team and Caroline Stanley of Sky Blue FC, you can find it by going to our website, 2upfrontsoccer.com, the number 2. You can also find it on great platforms like iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Google Play as well, too. If you're a Google Play music person, if you're an Android user, you can go and find 2 Upfront on that platform as well.
Yeah, you can also find us on Facebook. Of course, 2 Upfront in the search bar will pop up. Do us a favor and give us a like on that page. It helps us out a great deal, and it doesn't cost you anything. Also, check us out on Twitter at 2 Upfront Soccer. You're using the number 2 there. Again, that's at 2 Upfront Soccer. We also have our personal Twitter handles at Simon Provan and at Baxter Colburn.
All right, Simon, one of the things we didn't get a chance to speak about earlier in the show, just because of all the great interviews we had, something happening in the NWSL is the North Carolina Football Club enters into an agreement to acquire the rights for the Western New York Flash, the NWSL champion.
Crazy,
Western
Baxter.
New York Flash.
I was talking about my brothers before. This reminds me of my brother Josh, who captained the Milwaukee Rams rampage to their last championship season, which also ended up being their last season. Western New York Flash surprised everybody, comes out, beats Portland Thorns in the semifinals, down in the final to Washington Spirit, comes back twice and ends up winning in a shootout, and now they no longer exist.
Well, we heard rumors throughout the NWSL season that Boston was going to be the team. I thought that would be sold and shipped off to someplace else just because their numbers were pretty awful. Even Sky Blue, I think, was rumored as well to go to a different place in the country. And we heard, I was even thinking too, with all the issues that Washington had been having recently, that maybe Washington was going to close up shop and just restart, basically.
I think it was surprising for me, period, Baxter, because when I was at the NWSL championship game, I had an opportunity to talk to the commissioner, Jeff Plush, talking about the growth of the game. He had said to me, one thing people don't realize about the NWSL is all of our teams are very healthy. Everybody has increased their revenue this year. And then, that was October, we're in January now, so 3 months later, I guess not the case.
How healthy, exactly. So the North Carolina Football Club as a whole, they are, I believe, are going to be presenting an NASL team as well. They want to make a bid for MLS. We know the Carolinas as a whole is a hotbed for soccer in America. You've got UNC for the women's side, who is just an absolute powerhouse in the college game. Allie Long went there, even though, of course, Caroline Stanley didn't at USC, but still a name that many, many people will know. It's interesting, and we were talking about this off the air, Simon, that Paul Riley might not have a job anymore, which is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but Dan Lauletta, who's been on the show with Equalizer Soccer, sorry, Dan, if I'm butchering your last name, he had tweeted out that the thing that he noticed in the announcement was Paul Riley is one of the candidates for coaching. So it surprises me. We've had him on the show a couple of times now. Again, I got to talk to him personally down at the championship game. Great guy, great energy. Every player that has played under him that we've talked to absolutely loves the guy. He obviously knows what he's doing when he takes a young team like Western New York Flash and gets him to a championship game. So to not have him go with the team is surprising, but it actually may come down to a personal decision, Baxter, with Paul Riley. Apparently one of the main reasons he took the job at Western New York Flash is because he considers that home right now in his life. So perhaps it was more of a, I don't know if I want to do this yet, guys, so keep my name in the hat, but don't guarantee, I'm not going to guarantee you that I'm coming down.
Or
there.
maybe, North Carolina Courage, they have to have a search. Maybe even though, kind of like how you hear for certain jobs when like a big time job opens and they've already got a person, but they can't officially announce it right away. They have to do an official search to follow league rules or whatever. Maybe Paul Riley is going to still coach.
You're right. Maybe there is something in the fine print. I'd be surprised if there was when it comes to professional sports.
Yes.
But listen, give Carolina, this ownership group, or this owner, a lot of credit because he had said earlier in the year that he's gunning to get an NWSL team by next year. So for him to do it a year early, it's a good thing for him.
Exactly. I will say, whoever the coach is that ends up inheriting this team, you're being handed, obviously, a championship-winning team, but you're getting national team players in Sam Mewis, Sabrina D'Angelo, Lynn Williams, Jess McDonald, and the list kind of goes on, honestly, after that. So any coach, who walks into this camp day one, whether it's Paul Riley or any coach, is already, to an extent, at a pretty decent advantage going forward. Yeah,
absolutely. And well, Baxter, why don't you tell the story about what you saw on Twitter today, speaking of Western New York Flash being the championship team?
Oh, my goodness. I thought it was kind of funny. So the North Carolina Courage is the name of the new team, for those of you that don't know. And they've recently opened up all their social media accounts, so they've been talking, trying to get people hyped up with everything going on. But they made a rookie mistake. They tweeted out to all the NWSL teams. They just said, hey, at all the teams, basically. But the one thing that they did that kind of, some people might say, screwed them over, is they included a GIF in their tweet that says, "We are the champions." And it was people kind of dancing, like, "We are the champions," kind of a thing like that. And every single NWSL team, and Twitter as a whole, basically just had a complete field day with them and said, "Oh, North Carolina Courage, are you Western New York Flash? Because that's not your name." And last time we checked, you guys haven't won a single game or played a single game, and it spiraled off of there. The Houston Dash started it. They said actually the Flash, and then it all just went on from there. And Twitter, especially women's soccer fans, just had an absolute field day with it. So the Courage not exactly starting off the way you want to. It might still be the same players. It might still be that transition, but you're no longer Western New York Flash. Western New York Flash is dead.
Well, that's when the San Jose Earthquakes moved from San Jose to Houston. Houston and birthed the Houston Dynamo. Dynamo had to win their first trophy to claim themselves as MLS Cup champions.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And somebody even made a comment about it too that I saw there saying, well, they've got everybody talking about them, which is probably what they were after anyways. So why not fall on the sword to an extent to get all this publicity?
As we know, Baxter, just being talked about is not always a good thing, apparently. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I did. Anyways, little inside joke there for Baxter and I, and some of you may get that joke. Anyways, I will say this, that we'll see what happens in Carolina. I do think it's a market hungry for women's professional soccer, and I do think it is a good organization to have in this league.
Yeah.
At the same time, you got to feel for the Western New York Flash fans. There may have not been many on game day, as many as you would like, but the fact is they had fans.
Yeah.
They had fans that traveled to that championship game. They have a front office staff where we don't know. And I'm going to be a little personal here. Western New York Flash front office staff was one of the first teams that helped this show launch off with getting players on the show. So I certainly hope the front office staff is taken care of. And I'm talking everything down to Dave, who is their the guy that we always reach out to asking for interviews.
Michaela,
right. So hopefully they're either offered to follow this team because they do a great job. And on a selfish level, I certainly hope that Carolina is as gracious with getting us players as Western New York Flash was. So, I wish all the best for anybody who is involved in any way with the Western New York Flash.
You're absolutely right about that one. All right, with that, I think that's a good place to end the show this week, Simon. We had a lot that we covered today. 2 incredible guests. A special thanks to Allie Long and Caroline Stanley joining us on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Reminder, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time, live right here on Spreaker.com for about the next week or so, week and a half. Simon, you'll be here in spirit on Thursday, or do you not know exactly what you want to do?
Don't know exactly. A cool thing. I'm actually working on a film, but it's not me that's going to be part of the film on Thursday. It's my daughter, Bethany.
Hey, exciting. Congratulations.
So she's got a call time of 9:30. That's about 40 minutes away from the studio.
Okay.
Not sure what's going to be looking at noon. Maybe I'll be calling in, or maybe I just send you a text and say, hey, Baxter, talk about this.
Perfect. Exactly. I love it when you do that. All right. Well, remember, too, you can check out our website, 2upfrontsoccer.com. That is the number 2. You can also shoot us an email as well, 2upfrontsoccer@gmail.com.
You can find us on Facebook. Type in 2UpFront in that search bar. Again, if you could give us a like, just takes a little bit of your time, but none of your money. Also, check us out on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer, and of course, our own personal Twitter handles at Simon Provan, at Baxter Colburn.
Simon Provan, always a pleasure, sir. Let's do it again soon.
Let's do it.
All right, with our manager being the one above, we are 2UpFront.